At school that day, Elena could barely focus. During English class, she found herself staring out the window, trying to work out a plan. She needed to practice on a real piano, but where? The school had a music room, but it was always locked after hours, and during the day the music teacher used it for classes. Elena? Elena Martinez? She snapped back to reality. Her teacher, Mr. Peterson, was looking at her expectantly. Could you answer the question, please? I'm sorry. Could you repeat it? A few students giggled. Elena felt her cheeks burn. Mr. Peterson sighed but repeated the question. She managed to stumble through an answer, and the class moved on. After school, instead of going straight to meet her mother at the bus stop, Elena walked to the music room. She stood outside the door listening. She could hear someone playing inside. Not very well, but at least they were trying. She waited for 15 minutes, but whoever it was didn't leave. Finally, she gave up and headed to the bus stop where her mother would be waiting. They rode together to Westbrook Manor, just like always. But today felt different. Everything felt different. When they arrived, Elena noticed several cars in the driveway. The Ashfords were having people over. Rosa straightened her uniform and gave Elena a warning look. Please, mija, stay in the back. Don't go anywhere near the main rooms today. I won't, Mama, I promise. But staying invisible was easier said than done. About an hour into their shift, Elena heard voices coming down the hallway toward the servants' area. She looked up from her homework to see Vivian and her friends, the same girls from yesterday, walking past. They had shopping bags and were laughing about something. One of them glanced into the break room and saw Elena. She whispered something to Vivian, and they all stopped. Oh, look, Vivian said, her voice sweet but poisonous. It's the piano expert. The girls laughed. Elena kept her eyes on her textbook, trying to ignore them. What are you studying? Vivian walked into the room, uninvited. Let me guess. Community college applications? I'm just doing homework, Elena said quietly. You know what I heard? Vivian leaned against the doorframe. I heard that the Westbrook competition is coming up. My piano teacher says I'm definitely going to place in the top 3. I've been training for this my whole life. Elena's heart skipped. She didn't respond. My mom says they sometimes get random people who enter thinking they have a chance. People with no training, no real talent. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. They just waste everyone's time. One of Vivian's friends chimed in. Didn't someone from the public school try to enter last year? And they got eliminated in the first round? Oh, that's right. Vivian laughed. It was so awkward. The judges didn't even let them finish playing. They were trying to get a reaction from Elena, she could feel it. But she kept her face neutral, her eyes on her homework, even though the words were swimming together on the page. Anyway, Vivian said, turning to leave. Some people are just born for certain things. And some people aren't, that's just how the world works. After they left, Elena sat very still. Her hands were shaking. Part of her wanted to cry. Part of her wanted to scream. But a bigger part of her, the part that sounded like her grandmother, wanted to prove them all wrong. That evening, after Rosa finished her shift, they drove home in silence. Elena could tell her mother was exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she winced when she shifted in her seat. Her back had been bothering her lately from all the bending and lifting. Their apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms in an old building where the heat barely worked in winter and the air conditioning didn't work at all in summer. But it was home. Rosa had made it as comfortable as possible with second-hand furniture and curtains she'd sewn herself. Elena heated up leftover rice and beans for dinner, while her mother sat at the kitchen table, sorting through bills. She watched Rosa's face grow more and more worried as she looked at each envelope. Mama, Elena set a plate in front of her. Are we okay? Rosa forced a smile. We're always okay, mija. Don't worry about these things, but Elena did worry. She saw how hard her mother worked. She saw the way Rosa came home with sore hands and an aching back. She saw the sacrifices her mother made, never buying anything for herself, wearing the same 3 outfits, skipping meals sometimes so Elena could have more. After dinner, Elena washed the dishes while her mother took a shower. When Rosa came out wrapped in an old bathrobe, she looked a little more relaxed. Mama, can I ask you something? Of course, Elena dried her hands on a towel. Did Abuela ever want to learn music? Like really learn it? Rosa's expression softened. She sat down at the kitchen table and patted the chair next to her. Elena sat. Your grandmother loved music more than anything, Rosa said. When I was little, she would sing all the time. While cooking, while cleaning, while walking me to school. She had the most beautiful voice. Did she ever try to learn an instrument? Rosa shook her head. There was no money for that. And back then, in our village, those things were only for rich families. Your abuela worked in the fields from the time she was 7 years old. There was no time for music lessons or school. She couldn't even read or write. Elena felt a lump in her throat. But she was the smartest person I ever knew. Rosa continued. She could solve any problem. She knew how to make medicine from plants. She could predict the weather just by looking at the sky, and she remembered every song she ever heard word for word. I miss her, Elena whispered. I miss her too. Rosa took Elena's hand. She loved you so much. She was so proud of you. You know that, right? Elena nodded. Then, before she could stop herself, she said, I want to enter the music competition. Rosa's hand tightened around hers. What competition? The Westbrook one. The one Vivian is entering? Her mother's face changed. Mija, no. That's not. We can't. Why not? It's free to enter. I just need to submit a video of me playing. But you don't have a piano, and even if you did, those kids have been training their whole lives. They have expensive teachers, and I know how to play, Mama. Rosa stared at her. What do you mean? Elena took a deep breath. I've been teaching myself. For 3 years. I watch videos online and I practice whenever I can. I'm good, Mama, I know I am. Where do you practice? We don't have a piano. Elena didn't answer. She didn't want to admit that she'd been sneaking around in the Ashfords' house, risking her mother's job even more than Rosa knew. Rosa seemed to understand anyway. Her face fell. Oh, Elena, no, you can't. We can't risk this. If Mrs. Ashford finds out you've been using their piano, she'll fire me immediately, and she'll make sure I never work anywhere else. She has connections everywhere. I'll find another way to practice. There has to be somewhere. And what happens if you enter and don't win? Those people will laugh at you. They'll laugh at us. Do you want to give them that satisfaction? What if I do win? Elena met her mother's eyes. The prize is a full scholarship to Thornfield Academy. Full scholarship, Mama. That means I could actually become a real musician. I could have a career. A good career. I could help you. You wouldn't have to work so hard anymore. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. I don't work hard because I have to. I work hard because I want to. Because you deserve a better life than I had. Better than your abuela had. Then let me try, please. Let me honor her memory. Let me prove that people like us can do this too. Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled Elena into a hug, holding her tight. You have her spirit, she whispered. That same fire. That same stubborn hope. When she pulled back, there were tears on her cheeks, but she was smiling. Okay, she said. We'll find a way. I don't know how, but we'll find a way. That night, Elena lay in bed with a strange mixture of excitement and terror coursing through her. She'd told her mother. She'd said it out loud. She was really going to do this. She picked up her phone and searched for the competition website. The registration deadline was 3 weeks away. The competition itself would be in 2 months. 2 months to prepare for the most important performance of her life. 2 months to prove that dreams didn't belong only to people who could afford them. 2 months to show everyone that talent didn't care about money or last names or what side of town you came from. Elena smiled in the dark, her grandmother's voice in her head, singing one of those old songs about mountains and courage and never giving up. Finding a place to practice turned out to be harder than Elena expected. She tried the community center, but their piano was broken. Half the keys didn't work, and it was terribly out of tune. She asked her music teacher at school if she could use the music room after hours, but he said the building was locked by 4:30 every day, and he didn't have the authority to change that. Days passed, and Elena was running out of options. She'd submitted her registration for the competition using her mother's maiden name, Garcia instead of Martinez, hoping to avoid immediate recognition. But what good was entering if she couldn't actually practice? Then something unexpected happened. It was a Tuesday evening at Westbrook Manor. Elena was in the servants' break room as usual, trying to study for a chemistry test. Her mother was upstairs preparing dinner for the Ashfords. The house was mostly quiet. Suddenly, she heard footsteps in the hallway, quick, purposeful footsteps coming her way. Elena looked up expecting to see her mother or maybe the housekeeper. Instead, it was someone she'd barely ever spoken to, Daniel Ashford, Vivienne's younger brother. He was 17, a year older than Elena, and unlike his sister, he rarely said much of anything. Elena had seen him around the house, usually with a camera around his neck or a book in his hand. He never joined in when Vivienne mocked her. He just watched quietly, then walked away. Now he stood in the doorway looking nervous. "Hey," he said. Elena blinked. Hi? Can I talk to you for a second?" She glanced around, confused. "Me? Yeah, I need to tell you something." He looked over his shoulder, then stepped into the room and lowered his voice. "I heard you. Last night. Playing the piano." Elena's heart stopped. I didn't." "It's okay," he said quickly. "I'm not going to tell anyone. That's not why I'm here." She stared at him, trying to figure out if this was some kind of trap. Maybe Vivienne had put him up to this. Maybe he was recording her confession right now. Daniel seemed to sense her suspicion. He held up his hands. "Look, I know you have no reason to trust me. My family is, well, you know what they're like. But I'm not like them. At least I'm trying not to be." "What do you want?" Elena asked carefully. "I couldn't sleep last night. I was coming downstairs to get some water and I heard music. Real music, not like my sister's practice sessions. I followed the sound and saw you in the music room." Elena felt sick. She'd been so careful waiting until everyone was asleep. How had she messed up? "You were playing something beautiful," Daniel continued. "I don't know what it was, but it was the kind of music that makes you feel something. And I stood there in the hallway for 15 minutes just listening. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell your parents?" He shrugged. "Because you're really good. Like really good. Better than Vivienne, and she's had the best teachers money can buy." He paused. "And because I'm tired of the way my family treats people. The way they treat you and your mom. It's not right." Elena didn't know what to say. This felt too strange, too convenient. "I heard my sister and her friends making fun of you yesterday," Daniel said. "About the competition. Are you really entering?" She hesitated, then nodded. "That's brave." He pulled out his phone. "Listen, I want to help you. Help me how? I can give you access to the music room. Real access. My parents are going out of town this weekend for some business thing. They're taking Vivienne with them. Something about visiting a college. They'll be gone from Friday afternoon until Sunday night. And you? I told them I have a photography project due. They don't really care what I do as long as I stay out of trouble." He showed her his phone calendar. "Look, I'm serious. You could practice all weekend. As much as you want." It sounded too good to be true. Elena's mind raced with possibilities and dangers. What if it was a setup? What if he told his parents later? Her mother would lose her job for sure. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "What do you get out of it?" Daniel looked uncomfortable. "Honestly, nothing. I'm tired of standing by while my family acts like they're better than everyone else. My dad wants me to go to law school, follow in his footsteps, join the family firm. But I hate law. I want to be a photographer. I want to travel and take pictures and tell stories." He sat down across from her. "They think my dreams are silly. A waste of my potential, they say. So when I saw you risking everything just to practice piano in secret, teaching yourself because you love it that much, I don't know. It made me think that maybe some dreams are worth fighting for." Elena studied his face. He looked sincere. And more than that, he looked lonely, like someone trapped in a life he didn't choose. "If your parents find out," she started. "They won't. I'll make sure of it. The security cameras don't record audio, just video. And I know how to position things so it looks like I'm the one practicing, not you." "Why do you know that?" He smiled slightly. "Because sometimes I sneak people in to photograph. Models, friends, whatever. My parents think I'm just taking pictures of the house." Elena felt a tiny spark of hope. "This weekend?" "This weekend. I'll text you the code to the side entrance. Come Friday night after your mom's shift or Saturday morning, whatever works. Just bring your passion and show that piano what you can really do." After he left, Elena sat there in shock. Was this really happening? Could she trust him? That night, she told her mother about the conversation. Rosa was skeptical, worried, protective. "Mia, this could be a trick. What if he's trying to get you in trouble? But what if he's not? Mama, this might be my only chance. I need to practice on a real piano and I'm running out of time." Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. If you do this, you have to be so careful. In and out, practice and leave. Don't touch anything else. Don't wander around. Promise me. I promise. Friday came slowly, each hour dragging by. At school, Elena could barely focus. In her head, she was already at the piano, finally able to play with sound, to hear if all those silent practice sessions had actually taught her anything. When the last bell rang, she practically ran to meet her mother. They went to Westbrook Manor as usual. Elena watched from the window as the Ashfords loaded suitcases into their car. Mrs. Ashford was giving last-minute instructions to the staff. Vivienne was on her phone looking bored, and Mr. Ashford was checking his watch impatiently. Finally, they left. Rosa finished her shift and they went home. Elena was supposed to wait until later. Around 9 o'clock, Daniel had texted, but every minute felt like an hour. She tried to eat dinner but could barely taste anything. She tried to do homework but couldn't concentrate. At 8:30, she couldn't wait anymore. I'm going, she told her mother. Rosa grabbed her hand. Be careful, please. I will. Elena took the bus back toward the wealthy neighborhood where Westbrook Manor stood. The evening air was cool and her hands were sweating despite the temperature. She found the side entrance Daniel had told her about, hidden behind some tall hedges. With shaking fingers, she typed in the code he'd sent. The door clicked open. The house was dark and quiet. Elena knew her way around well enough by now. She made her way through the hallways, past the expensive paintings and furniture, until she reached the music room. The piano waited for her like an old friend. She sat down on the bench, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. For a moment she just stared at the keys. Then slowly she placed her hands in position, and she began to play. The sound that came out was everything she'd imagined, and more. Her fingers moved across the keys, tentative at first, then growing more confident. She made mistakes, of course she did, but she kept going. The muscle memory was there. All those hours of silent practice, all those nights of imagining the sound, it had actually worked. She played for an hour straight, trying different pieces, testing her skills, pushing herself. Sometimes she had to stop and figure out a difficult section. Sometimes she played the same few measures over and over until they sounded right. She was so absorbed in the music that she didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway. You're really good. Elena jumped, her hands crashing onto the keys in a horrible discord. She spun around to see Daniel standing in the doorway, smiling. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you, he said. I just wanted to check and make sure you found the place okay. You scared me to death, Elena said, her hand over her racing heart. Keep playing. Seriously, don't let me interrupt. He sat down in one of the chairs along the wall and pulled out his camera. Do you mind? This is kind of a cool moment. Girl chasing her dream and all that. Elena felt self-conscious now, but she turned back to the piano. She started playing again, softer this time. A piece by Debussy that she'd learned from a YouTube tutorial. As she played, something shifted. The nervousness faded away. There was just the music flowing through her, coming from somewhere deep inside. This was why she loved it. This feeling of connection, of expressing something that words couldn't capture. When she finished, Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, My sister's going to lose her mind when she finds out how good you are. Elena turned to face him. She can't know, not yet. Not until the competition. She's going to find out eventually. You entered under a different name? My mom's maiden name. Smart. He stood up and walked over to the piano. You know what the crazy thing is? Vivienne has had every advantage. The best teachers, this beautiful piano, all the time in the world to practice. And she still plays like she's reading ingredients off a cereal box. No feeling, you know? She's not that bad, Elena said, though she agreed. She's not good either. Not like you? He paused. What piece are you doing for the competition? I'm not sure yet. I was thinking maybe Rachmaninoff, but that might be too ambitious. Do it. Go big. You've got nothing to lose and everything to prove. Elena smiled. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was time to stop playing it safe. Same time tomorrow? Daniel asked. If that's okay? More than okay. Come whenever you want this weekend. I'll be here. As Elena left that night, walking to the bus stop under the streetlights, she felt different, lighter somehow. For the first time since this whole thing started, she actually believed she might have a chance. Not because someone had given her permission, but because she'd finally given it to herself. Elena spent the entire weekend at Westbrook Manor, practicing until her fingers ached. Daniel kept his promise, making sure she had complete access to the music room. He'd even ordered food for her, left bottles of water on the side table, and occasionally sat in to listen, always encouraging her to push harder, play bolder. By Sunday evening, Elena felt ready. She'd chosen her piece, Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor. It was ambitious, maybe even crazy for someone with her limited formal training. But it felt right. The music spoke to her in a way nothing else did. It had darkness and light, struggle and triumph, pain and hope. It was her story in notes. On Monday, she recorded her performance using Daniel's high-quality camera equipment. They did 3 takes, and the third one was perfect. Her hands didn't shake. Her timing was flawless. The emotion poured out of every note. "That's the one," Daniel said, watching the playback. "That's definitely the one." Elena submitted the recording that night, using the school library computer. Her finger hovered over the submit button for a full minute before she finally clicked it. There was no going back now. The next 2 weeks felt like waiting for the world to either open up or collapse. Elena went to school, did her homework, went to the Ashford's house with her mother, and tried to act normal. But inside, she was a bundle of nerves. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, she got the email. She'd been selected. She was through to the live competition round. Elena read the email 3 times, hardly believing it. Out of hundreds of applicants, she'd made it to the final 30. The live competition would be held in 4 weeks at the Grand Meridian Concert Hall. Each performer would play in front of a panel of judges and a live audience. She wanted to scream. She wanted to dance. She wanted to call her mother right away. But she was sitting in study hall, surrounded by other students, so she just stared at her phone screen with tears blurring her vision. That evening, she told her mother. Rosa cried and hugged her so tight Elena could barely breathe. They celebrated with ice cream from the dollar store, sitting at their tiny kitchen table, talking about possibilities that once seemed impossible. But their celebration was short-lived. 2 days later, everything fell apart. Elena and her mother arrived at Westbrook Manor for their usual shift. The moment they walked in, Elena knew something was wrong. Mrs. Ashford was waiting in the foyer, her face like stone. Mr. Ashford stood beside her, arms crossed. And Vivian was there too, smirking. "Rosa, we need to talk," Mrs. Ashford said. "In private. Is everything all right?" Rosa's voice trembled slightly. "Come with me. Elena, you stay here." Elena watched her mother follow the Ashfords into the study. The door closed behind them. Vivian lingered in the hallway, watching Elena with an expression that made her stomach turn. "You're in so much trouble," Vivian said softly. "You and your mom." "What are you talking about?" "Oh, you'll find out soon enough," she smiled. A cruel twist of her lips, then walked away. Elena stood there frozen, her heart pounding. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the study door opened. Her mother came out, her face pale, her eyes red. "Mama? We need to go. Now." "But your shift isn't—" "Now, Elena." They got to the car in silence. Rosa's hands were shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. When she finally started the engine, she just sat there, staring straight ahead. "Mama, what happened? What did they say?" Rosa's voice came out flat, hollow. "They know. About the piano. About you practicing there. About the competition." Elena felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "How?" "The security cameras. Mrs. Ashford was reviewing footage from last weekend. She saw you. She saw Daniel letting you in." Rosa's voice cracked. "She said I betrayed their trust, that I raised a thief." "A thief? I didn't take anything. She said you stole their resources, their piano, their home, their son's time." Tears started rolling down Rosa's cheeks. "She fired me. Said she's going to make sure no family in this city ever hires me again. She knows people, Elena. She has connections everywhere. No, this can't be happening. And there's more." Rosa finally looked at her. Vivian convinced her parents to call the competition organizers. She wants you disqualified. Said you only learned on their piano, that you're basically stealing from them to compete against their daughter. Elena couldn't breathe. The car felt too small, the air too thick. Can they do that? Can they disqualify me? I don't know. Mrs. Ashford said she has lawyers looking into it. They drove home in silence. Elena felt numb, like she was watching this happen to someone else. When they got to their apartment, Rosa went straight to her room and closed the door. Elena could hear her crying through the thin walls. She sat on the couch staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed. It was Daniel. I'm so sorry. My parents found out. They're furious with me too. They took my car, my camera equipment, everything. But that doesn't matter. What matters is you. Are you okay? Elena didn't reply. She couldn't find the words. Another text came through. Don't give up. Please don't give up. You deserve this chance. But what chance did she have now? Even if they didn't disqualify her, her mother had lost her job. They'd lose the apartment. They'd have to move, maybe to a different city entirely. And it was all Elena's fault. She'd been selfish. She'd put her dream ahead of their survival. That night, Elena barely slept. She lay in bed, listening to the sounds of the city outside, her window thinking about her grandmother, about all those promises she'd made. Dreams felt stupid now, childish. What good was music when you couldn't pay rent? The next morning, Rosa didn't get out of bed. Elena made coffee and toast, but her mother barely touched either. She just sat at the kitchen table, staring at the bills she could no longer pay. Mama, I'm going to withdraw from the competition. Rosa looked up. What? I'm withdrawing. This whole thing was a mistake. I should never have entered. I should never have put us at risk like this. Elena, no. Yes. It's the right thing to do. Maybe if I withdraw, Mrs. Ashford will calm down. Maybe she won't blacklist you from every job in the city. Maybe... Stop. Rosa's voice was firmer than Elena had heard in days. Just stop. But Mama, do you think this is what your grandmother would want? For you to give up? To let those people win? I don't care about winning anymore. I care about you. About us. About keeping a roof over our heads. Rosa stood up and walked over to Elena. She took her daughter's face in her hands. Listen to me. Yes, I lost my job. Yes, things are scary right now. But we've been through scary before. When your father left, when Abuela got sick, when the car broke down and we had no way to fix it. We survived all of that. This is different. No, it's not. It's the same fear, just wearing a different face. Rosa's eyes were fierce now. You worked so hard for this. You taught yourself something that most people need years of expensive lessons to learn. You made it to that competition on pure talent and determination, and you're going to see it through. But the Ashfords don't own the world, even if they think they do. You earned your spot in that competition. They can't take that away from you. Elena wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at her insides. What if they find a way to disqualify me? What if I show up and they won't let me perform? Then at least you tried. At least you didn't let them bully you into silence. The next few days were brutal. Rosa applied for jobs, but word had spread through the wealthy neighborhoods. No one would hire her. They were polite but firm. The position had been filled. They weren't looking for anyone right now. They'd keep her resume on file. Elena went to school but couldn't concentrate. Her teachers noticed, her grades slipped, but she didn't care. Nothing seemed to matter anymore. Then, 1 week before the competition, Elena got a call from an unknown number. Is this Elena Garcia? A man's voice asked. Yes. This is Robert Chen. I'm the director of the Westbrook Classical Music Competition. Elena's heart stopped. This was it. They were calling to disqualify her. I wanted to speak with you personally, Mr. Chen continued. I received a very interesting phone call from the Ashford family. They requested that we remove you from the competition. I understand, Elena said quietly. I'll withdraw. I'm not finished. I told them no. Elena almost dropped the phone. What? Miss Garcia. I've been running this competition for 20 years. I've seen every kind of manipulation, every attempt to rig the system. Wealthy families trying to buy their children's success. But that's not what this competition is about. It's about talent. Pure talent. And your audition recording showed exactly that. So, I can still compete? Absolutely. In fact, I want you to know that I've dealt with the Ashfords' lawyers. They have no legal standing to have you removed. You didn't steal anything. You practiced on a piano with permission from a member of their household. And even if you hadn't, simply using an instrument doesn't constitute theft. Elena couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down her face. There's one more thing, Mr. Chen said. Your story has gotten some attention. Not from me. I would never share a competitor's information, but someone posted about it online. A young photographer, I believe. It's been spreading on social media. People are interested in your journey. Daniel. It had to be Daniel. I'll see you at the competition, Miss Garcia. Show them what real music sounds like. When Elena hung up, her mother was standing in the doorway, eyes questioning. I'm still in, Elena whispered. I'm still in the competition. Rosa grabbed her and they held each other, crying and laughing at the same time. They were still in trouble. They still had no idea how they'd pay next month's rent. Rosa still didn't have a job, but Elena had her chance and she wasn't going to waste it. The week before the competition moved in a blur. Elena practiced everywhere she could, on the broken piano at the community center, on the tables at school cafeteria during lunch, even on her lap while riding the bus. Her fingers never stopped moving, running through the piece over and over in her mind. Daniel had indeed posted about her story online. He didn't use her real name, but he told the tale of a girl who taught herself piano in silence, who practiced with her hands hovering over keys she was too afraid to press, who dared to dream despite everyone telling her she had no right to. The post went viral. Thousands of people shared it. Some commented with their own stories of dreams they'd given up on. Others offered words of encouragement. A few people even reached out to Rosa with job offers, saying they'd be honored to hire someone who raised such a determined daughter. But not everyone was supportive. Some people said Elena was being ungrateful, that the Ashfords had every right to be angry. Others said she was naive to think she could compete against kids who'd trained their whole lives. The comments section became a battlefield between those who believed in second chances and those who thought people should stay in their place. Elena tried not to read any of it. She had one focus now, the competition. The night before the big day, Elena couldn't eat. Her stomach was tied in knots. She laid out the dress she'd wear, a simple navy blue dress that her mother had bought from a thrift store and carefully altered to fit perfectly. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and dignified. Rosa came into her room and sat on the edge of the bed. How are you feeling? Terrified, Elena admitted. Good. That means you care. Rosa smoothed Elena's hair back from her face. Your grandmother came to me in a dream last night. Really? She was singing. That old song she used to sing to you, remember? The one about the little bird who flew higher than anyone thought possible. Elena smiled. She remembered. El pajarito. She was so proud of you, mija, and wherever she is now, she still is. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Rosa said, No matter what happens tomorrow, you've already won. You know that, right? You proved that you can do anything you set your mind to. You proved that people like us were just as worthy as anyone else. I love you, Mama. I love you too. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow you have a concert to give. But sleep didn't come easily. Elena lay awake for hours, running through the piece in her head, imagining her fingers on the keys, hearing every note in perfect clarity. Morning arrived too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Elena showered, dressed carefully, and barely managed to swallow a few bites of toast. Rosa had taken the day off from job hunting to be there. Nothing was going to make her miss this. They took 2 buses to get to the Grand Meridian Concert Hall. It was a beautiful building, all marble columns and golden doors. Elena had walked past it 100 times but never imagined she'd actually go inside. The lobby was filled with people, competitors in expensive clothes with their families, all looking confident and comfortable. Elena felt out of place immediately. Her dress suddenly seemed too plain, too simple. Everyone else looked like they belonged here. Miss Garcia? Elena turned to see Mr. Chen, the competition director. He was a small man with kind eyes and silver hair. He smiled warmly at her. I wanted to introduce myself properly. I'm so glad you came. Thank you for letting me compete, Elena said. Letting you? Miss Garcia, you earned your place here. He looked at Rosa. You must be her mother. Your daughter is extraordinarily talented. Rosa beamed with pride. Thank you, sir. The performance order is being finalized now. You'll probably go on in the second half. There's a warm-up room where you can practice if you'd like. And Miss Garcia? He leaned in slightly. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong here. Talent doesn't care about bank accounts or last names. As they walked toward the warm-up room, Elena spotted Vivienne across the lobby. She was surrounded by her family and what looked like her expensive piano teacher. When Vivienne saw Elena, her expression changed. Surprise, then anger, then something else. Fear, maybe? Mrs. Ashford noticed Elena too. She said something to her husband and they both stared. Elena felt her mother tense beside her, but Rosa held her head high and kept walking. In the warm-up room, Elena sat at one of the practice pianos. Her hands were shaking. She tried to play through her piece but fumbled the first few measures. Breathe, she whispered to herself. Just breathe. She closed her eyes and thought of her grandmother. Thought of all those nights practicing in silence. Thought of her mother working double shifts, sacrificing everything. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about everyone who'd ever been told they weren't good enough, smart enough, worthy enough. She played through the piece once more, and this time it was perfect. The competition began at 2 o'clock. Elena and Rosa found their seats in the audience, front row, courtesy of Mr. Chen. The auditorium was packed. Cameras lined the back wall recording everything. One by one, the competitors performed. Some were brilliant. Some were technically perfect but emotionally flat. Vivienne performed in the first half, playing Chopin's Nocturne competently but without any real feeling. The applause was polite. Elena noticed Mrs. Ashford's disappointed expression. During intermission, Elena went backstage. Her hands were sweating. Her heart was racing. She was third to perform in the second half. A stagehand called her name. You're up next, Miss Garcia. This was it. Elena walked to the edge of the stage, hidden behind the curtain. She could hear the current performer finishing their piece. The applause. The judges making notes, then she heard her name announced. Our next performer is Elena Garcia, age 16, performing Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor. Elena walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, almost blinding. The audience was a sea of faces. She found her mother in the front row, tears already streaming down Rosa's cheeks. She sat at the grand piano. It was beautiful. The best instrument she'd ever touched. For a moment she just sat there, her hands resting on her lap. Then she leaned toward the microphone on the piano. Her voice was soft but clear, and in the silent auditorium everyone heard. Can I play this for my mom? She said. This is for my abuela Maria, who worked hard her whole life and sang songs she never learned to read. And for my mother, who gave me everything so I could be here today. Rosa was openly crying now, one hand pressed to her heart. Elena placed her fingers on the keys, and then she began to play. The first notes rang out powerful and clear. Her fingers moved across the keys with precision she didn't know she had. All those hours of silent practice, all that muscle memory, it all came together in this moment. But more than technical skill, Elena played with her soul. Every note carried emotion, the pain of being looked down on, the determination to prove herself, the love for her family, the hope for a better future. The music swelled and dipped, powerful then gentle, angry then tender. She played the difficult passages flawlessly, her fingers dancing across the keys in the rapid sections, then slowing for the haunting melody. She forgot about the judges, the cameras, the other competitors. There was only the music, flowing through her like a river, like her grandmother's voice, like her mother's prayers. When she reached the final passage, she let the notes ring out, each one clear and pure. The last chord hung in the air, vibrating through the silent auditorium. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the applause exploded. People stood up, clapping, some wiping tears from their eyes. The judges were on their feet. Even some of the other competitors were clapping. Rosa was sobbing, her hands over her mouth. Elena stood and bowed, overwhelmed. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. As she walked off stage, her legs were shaking so badly she could barely walk. Mr. Chen met her in the wings. "That," he said quietly, "was why I do this job. To witness moments like that." The rest of the competition passed in a daze. Elena barely registered the other performances. When all the competitors had finished, the judges deliberated for 30 minutes that felt like 30 hours. Finally, Mr. Chen returned to the stage with an envelope. "This year's competition was exceptional," he said. "We've heard remarkable talent from all our competitors. But there was one performance that stood out not just for technical excellence, but for raw emotional power and musical storytelling." Elena's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might explode. The first-place winner, receiving a full scholarship to Thornfield Music Academy, is Elena Garcia. The auditorium erupted. Rosa screamed and jumped up. Daniel, who'd snuck in to watch, was cheering from the back. Even some of the other competitors' families were applauding. Elena walked back onto the stage in a daze. Mr. Chen handed her a trophy and an envelope with the scholarship certificate. The cameras flashed. People were taking photos. It felt like a dream. She looked out at the audience and found her mother. Rosa was standing, crying, clapping so hard her hands must have hurt. Their eyes met across the distance, and in that moment no words were needed. They'd done it. Not just Elena, they'd done it together. Months later, Elena stood in front of her own music school. It was small, just 3 rooms in a community center, but it was hers. The sign above the door read, "Garcia School of Music, where every dream deserves a chance." Inside, 15 students sat at keyboards. Some new, some donated, all playable. These were kids from her neighborhood. Kids whose families couldn't afford private lessons. Kids who'd been told that music wasn't for people like them. Elena's mother worked there too, managing the office and helping students with their registration. She'd found a good job at a company owned by someone who'd seen Elena's performance online and wanted to support their family. The owner said she admired people who fought for their dreams. On the wall hung a faded photograph of Elena's grandmother, and next to it, a small plaque that read, "Talent doesn't ask for permission. It only asks for a chance." Daniel visited sometimes, photographing the students, documenting their progress. He'd stood up to his parents, switched his major to photography, and was now working on a project about people who pursued their dreams against all odds. As for the Ashfords, they'd faded into the background of Elena's life. Vivian had sent a letter months after the competition, a real apology written in her own hand, admitting that Elena's talent had made her realize how much she'd taken for granted. They weren't friends, but the cruelty had ended. On this particular afternoon, Elena sat at the piano in her school and played for her students. As her fingers moved across the keys, she saw their faces light up with possibility, with hope, with the beginning of their own dreams. And somewhere she knew, her grandmother was singing.